Okay, in this video I'm going to be repeating what we did in class today and showing you how to create this part that I call base with handle. And so here's the finished part that has a lot of mirroring, an awful lot of holes and patterns and circular patterns and those kinds of things. So let's take a look at how to create this part. And so I'm going to go to Window. I've already created an empty part called Part 4. Let me confirm that the units are set to millimeters, and they are, so we will close that, cancel that, and we'll start creating this part. So I'm going to do an Extrude Boss Base, sketching on the front plane, and to get this thing about right, I'm going to create a line that I would like to snap through here and snap to the other side. And just to get the scale right, because this part could look funny if I'm not careful, I'm going to smart dimension this line, and it's going to be a dimension of 20 millimeters, and that'll sort of set the scale for everything else. And now this line needs to, oops, I'm in smart dimension, I don't want that, let's escape out of that. This line needs to move over and in the end be centered on this point. So I'm going to show you an interesting way to do this. I'm going to right click and select the midpoint of this line. Then I'm going to hold down Control and I'm going to make those coincident. I now have a line of size 20 which is centered on my part. Drag the dimension closer and zoom in a little bit, and now I'm going to start creating other features. I'm going to create the other lines which will go up from here and over at an angle and flat and back down at an angle, snapping right above that point, then snapping onto that point. That would be the lines that I want to create. Now I want to maintain some symmetry in this point, so I'm going to create a center line, which is helpful, and it's going to pass through the center of my coordinate system, and it's going to run vertical for a while. It doesn't matter how tall it is as long as it runs vertical. I like that center line. And now I'm going to use that center line to create some symmetry, such as I'm going to click on this point, I'll control click on the center line, and then I'll control click on that point. With all three of those selected, I'm going to say symmetric, and those points become symmetric. Let's see, these are probably already symmetric because this was symmetric and the vertical, so it would actually be redundant to make them symmetric. So I'm just going to go with what I have there. Now if I look at how this part can change, I can move it around, but you see how that symmetry is always maintained. Okay, now I need to do a little bit more dimensioning, so I'm going to smart dimension this top, and it's going to have a dimension of 10. And then I'm going to set this angle, which will set the overall height of this thing, because that is still changeable. And so to dimension an angle, I will click this line and that line and bring this out and change that dimension to 30 degrees. And now let's see, is everything black on the part? No, I need one more dimension, which is here to the bottom, and that dimension will be a dimension of 8. And everything really, I didn't maintain symmetry because this one is taller than this one. Looks like I can change these angles independent of each other, so I do want to maintain that symmetry. Click on that point, control click on the center line, control click on that point, and say symmetric, and now that snaps into place and everything is black. We'll accept that. We'll accept my sketch. And I started with an extrude, and that extrude width is also 10. It happens to have the right value, except I don't want to extrude blind. I want a whole lot of symmetry in here, so I'm going to use the midplane. That keeps my sketch plane in the middle of the part. I will accept that part, and now I've got the overall base of the part. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is make the cutout that'll show up on this face, and so I'm going to right click on that face and view perpendicular. That'll be my sketch, and with that face selected, I'm going to use, let's see, where did it go? Oh, it's within Sketch. I want to use offset entities. And so selecting that face, oh, I'm not in the sketcher, that's what it is. Okay, I'm not in the sketcher because I didn't tell it to send me to the sketcher. I'm going to use that to do an extruded cut. Now I'm in the sketcher, and with that selected I can do offset entities, and let's look at what a 1 looks like. Okay, couldn't see it on the screen earlier because it was too large. I want to reverse the direction, and so I've got a 1 millimeter offset from those outside edges, and that is my entire sketch. When I accept it, it should turn black. Nothing else to do. I accept that. I'm doing an extrude cut. I do want blind, and I want to go, let me find that dimension. That's a 4 millimeter dimension. And I will accept that cut. Okay, and now to get a whole lot of geometry at once, given that cut, I'm going to mirror it. Mirror. I'm going to mirror about my original front plane that I sketched on, and it brings it to the other side, and I have now mirrored that feature. Now what I will work on is the holes that are created inside of this part, and the holes will be patterned, but I'll right click on that, go normal to, and I'm going to do an extruded cut, and that extruded cut is going to be a hole, and so I will draw the hole of arbitrary size and location, and then I'll fix it. And then we'll go with smart dimension, and I want the diameter of that hole to be 0.5 millimeters, and I want the center of that hole to be 1 millimeter away from that one, and then I want the center to also be 1 millimeter away from this one. And that totally locates my sketch once I type in the 1 millimeter, and I'll accept it and close the sketch. And it knows that I'm wanting to do a cut, and it has selected a blind. Let's go with through all. Am I extruding in the right direction? Yes, I am. And so I'll accept that. And now I've got a single hole running all the way through the part. And now I want to work on that hole as a linear pattern. So I will, with the hole selected, click on linear pattern. For my first direction, I want to follow a straight line, and I want a spacing of 1 millimeter, and it already knew that I wanted 17 of them, and let's see, 17 should get the job done. Let's rotate a little bit. That looks good. Now I also want to extrude in the other direction, so I'm going to do a 2-direction pattern, and I'm going to use that vertical line to define the other direction, and I want a 1 millimeter spacing in the other direction. And because I've done this before, 5 is the right number. It's already sitting there. It's not really that smart. It just got it about right. And now there are some holes in this pattern that I don't like. If we will drop down to instances to skip, and if I click on that one, and that one, and that one, and that one, looks like I missed this one, and that one, will lose 4 on that side, and 1, 2, 3, and we'll lose 4 on that side, and that's the pattern that I like. I will accept it, and now I get all of those holes in the part. And so now I've got sort of the nominal base of the part. It still needs some chamfers and such, but I'm ready to start creating more. And so that's done. Now I'm going to create for the first time ever, a revolved boss base. Watch this carefully. Alright, now I'm going to have to select the plane to sketch on, and I want to sketch on either the front or the right would work. It wouldn't matter. I'll sketch on the front plane and view perpendicular because I like to, And first thing I'm going to do is create a center line to revolve about. So I'm using center lines a lot today. And I want that center line to snap. Actually, I'm going to snap it onto the center of the coordinate system. I'm going to zoom out so I can make it pretty tall, because my feature is going to be pretty tall. There's the center line that I want. Now I'm going to create the shape to be revolved by first of all snapping to the intersection of my center line and that top piece, and bring it on over to there and up to here, and I will slant out a bit, and it's going to be pretty tall, so let's get it in the neighborhood of right, and come out this way and up and go back to the center line and all the way back down. I've just closed that sketch, and now I need to smart dimension it and get the shape better. So going to smart dimension, I'm going to set from here to there to be a dimension of 1 millimeter, and from here to there to be a dimension of 7 millimeters, and from here to there to be a dimension of 13 millimeters. And then from here, I got a little bit of an inversion, but that's okay, to there to be a dimension of 15 millimeters. And once I have the geometry right, I'll drag my dimensions around a little bit and clean them up a little bit. And so there's the 7. Let's bring the 13 right about there, and let's bring the 15 into here. Okay, so that sets the height dimensions. Now I want to set the diameter dimensions. So let me show you something. If I click from point to the center line and drag this way, I get radius. But if I drag to the other side, I get diameter, which is really what I'm after. And that top shape has a diameter of 4. And then I'll go from, let's see if I can do line to center line. Again, on this side, coming to this side, I get a diameter of 2 is what I'm after. And then this point to the center line, oops, got the wrong one. Smart dimension, let's go this point to the center line, not to the point, to the center line, coming out to this side, and that is a dimension of 6.5, I think, 6.5. Okay, that gives me the shape that I'm after. Everything is black. I will accept that. Did I start with a revolved extrude? Yes, I did. And I had used my center line as the axis of revolution. It automatically assumed 360 degrees, although I could change that. And there's the feature. And I've created the top part of the handle. Then the next thing that I want to do is drill some holes in the top part of the handle. Then I can put some holes around here using linear patterns and mirrors and other things. So I'll right click on that surface, view perpendicular, and I'm going to create a cut. And my cut is going to be based on a circle. And so I will click on circle. I thought I had. That didn't work. Let's see what's happening. I'm in the sketcher. Let's try that again. Click on the circle. Okay, now I'm creating circles. I'm not sure why I wasn't creating circles before. So there's my circle. We'll go with smart dimension for a diameter of 0.5 millimeters. And I'm going to have this one show up because its center is movable. Let's escape. So I can move that anywhere I want. I'm going to click on the center and control click on the center here, and I'm going to say horizontal and accept that, and then I'm going to smart dimension from the center to the center a dimension of, let me find that, 1.25 millimeters. Okay, so the hole is located, and I will accept my sketch. Now, right now this is set up to drill blind. We do not want to drill blind. What I want to do is drill not through all, because that would go through this. I'm going to do that and then fix it actually. If I drill through all, you can see that it goes through this top piece, and it goes through the conical piece, and it goes all the way through the bottom. Not what I want at all, and so I'm going to right click, edit the feature, and change that to a through next, or up to next. And that then only goes through this one face. I will accept that. And that is precisely the hole that I want. And now with that hole selected, I'm going to do not a linear pattern, but a circular pattern. So I'll click on circular pattern. Now, a circular pattern, it knows that I'm going to rotate the hole. It needs an axis to rotate about. And I don't have one visible right now, so I'm going to go View, Temporary Axes. And the key thing is I can see the axis that runs straight down the center of this thing. And that's what I want to revolve about. And I want to place these copies. Let's zoom in. I do want 8 of them, it turns out, but I want to space them at 45 degrees. And let's zoom in on that a little bit. And if I went with 7, just to make sure I don't have any duplicates, then I have too few. So I'm going to sketch on 8. I'm going to choose 8. And I have that pattern feature. And then I should not need to view my temporary axes any longer. We'll turn that off, get that out of the picture. Now what I want to do is create the holes that go on this face. I will right click and I will zoom perpendicular, and I will do an extruded cut, and I'm going to draw a circle on this face and smart dimension the circle to have a diameter of, let me find that, diameter of 2 millimeters. And then I'm going to be placing it 2 millimeters from one edge and 3 millimeters from another edge. So I can actually click on circle and edge, and it knows that I'm working with the center, and so that one is going to be 2 millimeters. And then I can go circle to that edge, and it knows that I'm working with the center again, and that's going to be 3 millimeters. That hole is perfectly placed. I'll accept my sketch. I'm doing an extruded sketch. You can see if I were to go through all again, I would get too much. I don't want that. So again, I only want up to next. Now another way to do this would be up to surface, and then I would have to select the surface, and if I select that surface, then it knows to stop there. And so that can be useful sometimes as an alternative, but in this case up to surface is the same as up to next, but I'll leave it there. No, I'm going to go ahead and change it back to up to next. That's a little more general purpose way of doing it, and accept that. And now what I want to do, I could either do a linear pattern on this hole, or I can mirror the hole. What I'm going to do is mirror the hole. With the hole selected, I'll click on mirror. The plane I want to mirror about is the front plane, and it creates the hole for me. And now with the mirror selected, I'm going to mirror the mirror. And I want to mirror about the right plane, and it brings both of those holes along. So I'm getting a lot of geometry awfully fast. And we're getting very close to finishing the part. Now what I want to do is chamfer that outside surface. And so I'll go to Features, and instead of Fillet, we'll do a chamfer. And I don't want a 10 millimeter chamfer. I want a, let's see, that should be labeled in one of the drawing views. It's a 0.5 millimeter chamfer. And I'm going to go with that, and that, and that, and that, and that, and that. And I tried mirroring this chamfer earlier, and it didn't want to mirror, it failed. So while I'm at it, I'll just go ahead and grab that, and that one, and that one, and that one, and that one, and that one. And I've got all the chamfers that I want. I will accept those. And let's see, that chamfer is, that's a little bit on the big side, so I'll go edit it. Right click, edit definition. Okay, 0.5, let's go with a 0.25 millimeter chamfer, a little bit smaller. Accept that. And I'm also going to then chamfer the top circle, and I'll do the bottom circle while I'm at it. 0.25 is good, and accept that. And then I'm going to put a fillet on this one. 10 millimeters certainly would not work. Let's see what a 0.5 looks like. I think that looks pretty nice, and we'll go with that fillet. And I think I've got everything in the part that shows up in the drawing that I gave you. And so there's the part. Of course I would save it, but that finishes the video. It's a little bit fast, but of course with a video you can stop it and rewind it and use it as you wish.